Hi kids, it's Just Be the Clown, aka Justin Wright, the creator and former producer of Dance O Dance, which was a live, free, all ages, public access, hour-long dance program in Thurston County, Washington, which is Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater area from 1997 to 2021. And I was mainly in charge for the first 10 years, and then in the last year came back. But I'm doing a series of videos about those times to re-access the sparks of creativity and to be in a place of gratitude about all of those who assisted and contributed in so many ways. And so I wanted to launch right into more of the behind the scenes people that I didn't get to. And the last time I talked about Evergreen State College and the group contract and some of the producers that were at TCTV when I first came over. I was at Evergreen in the control room of their TV studio when Jeff Brenniger played a track that was his submission for the student CD project, and I loved it instantly. It was called Giant Grasshoppers, and I asked him for permission to use it. I knew people would dance to it, and he agreed, and that became the Dance O Dance theme song. I talked before about the intro montage, so that's the song that I then took this collection of dance excerpts and put that to the soundtrack of the Giant Grasshoppers, and over the course of the many months and initial years, took clips of each episode so you could see what you missed, and and that's how we started it every month, and that went on for years. Luke, who I'll talk about later, did a remix of it, and that we used that for a while. And then I did another remix that featured sound bites of people saying "Dance O Dance" or other phrases that we might have culled off the phone messages people left. Beautiful television show. So Jeff Berniger played this for me, and then he came with when we first shot, and he was a good director, and he was a good camera operator, and he was a good audio engineer. And I went to his home studio, and he helped transfer the cassette of uh, Grandpa Dell and Granny Alice Wright that then went on to go to aunts and uncles and cousins, and it's sort of a treasured souvenir because he had that technology available. But it helped the show out as well because I we were going from a cassette from I would make the soundtrack at Chaos in a one single pass live in the middle of the night and then bring the cassette in, or I would do multiple uh, audio sources. But after a couple of years of this, I went to Jeff's home studio, and he got us to make a mix CD. Basically, I bring him a stack of CDs, and this track from here, put it in this order, and so then from like November '99 for the next couple of years, we had just a one button go for the soundtrack, and that helped out immensely. So one of the many game changers that people could contribute. When I got there, there was the late Tom Dubuque who volunteered on a lot of the other talk shows, some of which I volunteered on that I mentioned before, Nancy and Lillian and Elaine and so forth. And he was not a dancer or a musician, but he was a good technician. He could run the camera as well, and he loved the special effects. So we had a lot of fun wipes and fades and overlays and things like that. So yeah, thanks to the late Tom Dubuque, but also the other people who passed from TCTV, the late John Horseman, the late Bruce Tenney, were both camera operators and dancers. Uh, Bruce was one of the first of the several that wore a dress. That was his signature costume that gave him the freedom to dance that he wanted. The late Pat Jeffries and the late Bill Oliphant were TCTV people that were an effect on the show, and I'm sure the show had an effect on them. I know Tom was with us for at least 4 years because on the fourth anniversary, I took him and Steve Susky and Luke Turner over to Rusty Cockridge, which is was a little boutique and studio run out of this couple's home that they built from scratch. This out in the woods uh, wooden castle with secret doors and turrets and all manner of amazing things to look at, and a little shop you could buy tchotchkes at, and they would serve you a free homemade root beer ice cream floats, and there would be free photo shoots 3 times a year on Valentine's, Mother's Day, and Halloween. And you could book a session with Jerome throughout the year. And I booked one around about my birthday and the time of the 4th anniversary coming up with Tom and Steve and Luke, and they had us all with these various balls, ceramic or wooden or metal balls or whatever, and Jerome had me throw mine in the air, and he took the photo right as it was floating in midair. And this was this shot of the 4 of us having gotten through 4 years of making this TV show. I'm jumping ahead some, but I have a lot of great memories about Rusty Cockridge, going there on the weekends with a lot of different friends and family members, and has a good there's a good fondness and memories of connections there, and the way that they organized it was you don't send someone there, you can only bring people that you love and you can vouch for. And so Steve Susky. So I just mentioned him. So I found Steve. He was a musician, and multimedia artist, and he was producing a show called Time Benders. It looked like the visuals of an acid test, right? Editing found footage of all manner of things, rescans, slow mo backwards, through a pickle jar, and different colored filters, and it was so compelling to look at that I called the station and asked to get in touch with him, and let him know that I wanted to use that as video fodder, background footage that we would overlay over the dancers. Up until then, had a lot of other video sources of dance videos from movies or TV shows or whatnot, or something trippy. And the reason we would do this is because in the TV studio it's just full on lights. There was only on or off switches, no faders. It wasn't designed to be like a club. So over the years we have to do things to make it more club-like, more trippy, more gentle in some ways than the harsh, full-on studio lights. But so Steve agreed to come and bring his tape, and then we put him on a camera, and he got his pickle jar out, and we were together for years, and we're still friends. And there was a time. I'll mention how I was roommates with Luke, but there was a time when I was living at the Track House, subletting a room, and then they needed that room back, and I wound up living in Steve's backyard in like a fifth wheel travel camper trailer thing with house privileges and all, but really saved me and gave me that space to recuperate and have a new headquarters for a while. I mentioned that's where I was living when I had the job as on the graveyard shift. So he lived like at the bottom of Mud Bay, and it was a couple-mile bike ride up the hill to the nearest bus stop, and then across town to St. Martin's, over by Lillian's for the cup of coffee, down Ruddle to 40th to work, 12 midnight to 8 a.m. And those wound up being dark times where I first got my first car when I was living with Steve's. So then, really importantly though, not to say any less of anyone else, but my roommate Luke Turner, who I was roommates with for many, many years, off and on, and is a multimedia artist now, doing the 3D modeling and stuff. But he was a go-to fix-it guy for your bicycles, your cars, your computers, your widgets, creating props. He had a high-quality BS detector, and would respond with measured enthusiasm to so many squirrely notions, to so many spaghetti-headed ideas, and that we had many artistic collaborations over the years. But he was right there at the beginning, and even I'm skipping ahead to after I quit and new management came in, Luke went along with them and carried the show so much by selecting music and doing fantastic promo flyers and so on and so forth. And house parties. You got into the house parties where I'd drag a field shoot to a party, and I guess the premise being that people would have less inhibitions if they were in a house, and that in a smaller space, fewer people would be more impressive, and so, but it would involve hours of extra prep and then editing, which he took on, and there was a half a dozen of those, and I'm sure that was super awesome for them. But the main game changer, I mean, really, you can't underestimate this. Was Luke's observation and then willingness to fix this. It was he would, you know, see a problem, fix a problem sort of a thing. We would go into the studio and they would have a monitor TV on a cart with a speaker underneath it, and that was the sound that we would get. And we could crank it up, and at first I thought it was fine. That's all we can do. But Luke thought, well, this is a quite obvious fix, even though it will require quite a bit of effort over time, that he would dismantle the entire sound system at the apartment. 4 speakers, do all the wires and the amplifier and the subwoofer and all this, and put it in his sports car. And as I mentioned before, for the first couple of years, I didn't have a car at all, so it was him and all this gear going down for audio reinforcement, so that we really had a thumping sound, that you could feel it, that you would feel like you're in a club. So that, and then mixing with the lights and things, you start to create an environment where people would feel okay dancing. So I could always count on Luke: mental, emotional, practical, creative support in all things. I can't underestimate this. I could do a whole show about it. Dear friend, one of the longest collaborators, and so much respect and admiration for his work. There came a point when I moved out, not just of the Trackhouse or Luke's or Steve's, but out of town. I was engaged, and after 9/11, 2001, that November, my fiance at the time thought that we should retreat to a cabin in the woods off the grid that became available to us, and we drove out there and saw this place, and it was wonderful and romantic, and it was hard living. We get our electricity from a little creek that would run a Pelton wheel that would go to an inverter to deep cell batteries, and with a propane stove and a propane fridge and a wood stove for heat and so on. But that's how we spent the last months of our engagement, the first year of our marriage, and then the pregnancy and the birth of our child, until we came back into town, where we needed like a garbage service that would come by, and regular heat control and things like that. But sometime in the midst of that, TCTV found out, and reminded me kindly that you've crossed the county line, and this is Thurston Community Television, and you need to be a resident of Thurston County to be a producer of the show. So we needed a new producer of record to go sign the paperwork and take the fall or whatever, be the titular head of it. And that's where the McCoyne brothers came in, Justin and Tommy, or Mac Dog and Pizza T. And so they helped out during that time, and then again after I left. But skipping ahead there, they have different aesthetics and musical tastes and social circles, and that infused the show with a whole lot more vitality and talent and options and optimism and different things like that. MacDog went on to become the most legit of probably anybody that I mentioned today, in that he's a principal MacDog, a vice principal, excuse me, skipping ahead perhaps, but was a music teacher and a tech lead and teacher and so on and so forth in public school systems. And Pizza T still has a MySpace page, as far as I know, and is a very active YouTube channel. We just spoke recently about making a video, um, and he's into crypto. And one of his greatest contributions was that he would gather with the dance crew. You would invite people to come before the show, and they would do a little quick choreography review, teach a few steps and moves, and they would whip that out somewhere in the middle of the show. And it added a level of professionalism, or production value, or intentionality and effort that was really them showing up for it. They had a good run. They did a lot of fun stuff there. Those guys, MacDog and Pizza T, and over the course of the time when I came back, and then I was married with a toddler and everything, we hit our like the 10th year peak there, where coming up on the final shows, it had caught on through MySpace and or Friendster and whatnot, where I had like a yellow legal pad, people signing in, and it was several pages long. It was like over 100, maybe 120. They were all mostly fake names, stage names, and silly things. I can't even remember all them all. But it seemed like, the entire graduating class of Capital High School or something. I would guess that because that would be the closest high school. But young people and high school, maybe middle school, there it was for all ages. We would get people of all ages, but it was a good high point to end on. Me working full time and knowing that I have this weird obsessive hobby. Get with me irritable as it would come up, and then disappointed afterwards if it didn't turn out all right. And I wound up after the 10 years of being able to say, okay, I'm walking away. You, of course, can make a show just like this, change the name, keep the same time slot and format if you want, whatever. And it became a Dance Only Dance instead of Dance O Dance, or Dance A Dance, or Dance O Dance Revolution, or some of the other names it existed under. But Freddie Dobler took it over and ran it, as far as I can tell, a dozen plus more years. And I believe they went through their peaks and valleys. From what I heard from Luke, that sometimes there might be a slow month, a poorly attended episode, and it tends to frustrate you, just like having a YouTube channel with very few hits on it, and you don't really know. Maybe 10 people were watching on one screen. You don't know. Maybe you should just wait 10 years, and then all of a sudden there will be 10,000 views, because what you had to say took a while to reach them. So when you have a creative project, you want to get feedback on it. It's not necessarily all one's own judgment of it. I need to conclude here with a big star, Robert Cam. Robert Cam runs Karaoke Oli and also works at TCTV, and he volunteered when Freddie retired to be a co-executive producer with me. And we did a couple of episodes in the studio, and then the pandemic quarantine hit and the studio was closed. But Robert had the paid account of Zoom that would record a full hour, and suggested that, and we did that and had a grand old time. So much so that he suggested we go every week, and we churned them out throughout the lockdown, reaching people around the world, and in other cities or states. Mainly us and our friends, our small handful, and then those of us that would have multiple cameras at one location and stuff. But we had so much fun with it. And so I thank Robert, because he had to edit it, and that's one of those things. I never wanted it that way. I just wanted to say it happened, and that's what you get. But putting together the pieces of one person pushing the button and a background safety shot, and then you wind up with something that's there. And of course, that's also, we found out the YouTube problem of automatic copyright infringement protection protocols. Um, but the complete shows went on TCTV and they went streaming as well, so they could have been seen in their full glory throughout the world. And yeah, so now it's been 20 minutes. I want to make sure that I come back with the talk about the influence of Chaos Radio, Kagami Buto, a lot of different musicians, a lot of different dancers with their unique skill sets and things that they brought to the table, because I'm very thankful that I was part of it. Um, a big beginning, early part of it, but still just a part of it. And if you were part of it, I want to hear from you in the comments. What were your memories? How did it affect you? These things are on my mind all this time later. And I can imagine that they are part of the collective unconscious. That those 100 kids 10 some years ago now have kids. Those of us that were on at the beginning, our kids are all full grown. So it's amazing. Time goes by. Thanks for watching, listening, and like and subscribe.